Great, welcome back to Senate Education on this Friday, February 2nd, a little after 2. We are now shifting to S-191, an act relating to New American Advancement Grant applications, and we're going to have about 45 minutes, I think, with the president of UVM, and then I've asked Beth James to come in, and we didn't finish our walkthrough of her language yesterday on summer school learning programs, so she's going to do that, which would probably bring us up, yes, until 4-ish. But for now, we're very pleased to have Scott Giles with us. And since it is your first time in the committee this year, and it'd be nice to see hear a little bit background, your organization, what you do for us.
Sure. I'm Scott Giles. I'm president and CEO of the Vermont Student Assistance Corporation. And I'll kind of start with VSAC, just as we really kind of brief primer. We were created back in 1965. Initially, our focus was on financial aid, was providing aid to make sure that low income and lower middle income students had access to the same educational opportunities that their more affluent peers did. Over time, we kind of learned the hard way that you can open doors, but that doesn't mean people are equipped to walk through them. And we started in the 70s providing career education counseling, first to adults, and then became one of the first states in the country to take advantage of 2 federal grants that allow us to provide have counselors serving nearly every middle school and high school in the state of Vermont, working primarily with first generation low income students. And with those students, we provide kind of career and education planning. People ask me all the time, if you're working with a middle school student, are you really picking a career? No. But we are helping them begin to navigate the process of trying to translate what it is that they like and what they think they are interested in doing. With the wider world of career possibilities. And then most importantly, give them the tools so that as their view of that changes, they know how to identify the education and training programs that we can be successful and where to find the financial aid and other materials they will need. We administer the state grant programs, which is part of why I'm here today, but we also administer the state 529 plan, which is the college savings plan. We administer almost 135 scholarships for private donors who are interested in leveraging our relationships with colleges and the uniform universal application process. We provide a supplemental student loan program, which is an important part of how it is that we are able to administer all the state programs that we run at essentially no cost to the state at this point. So you do give us the authority to draw portion for admin purposes. We've been kind of proud to work with the new arrivals to Vermont for over 30 years, and in particular have kind of worked closely with and recently received a grant to provide additional support to the academic capabilities, and which I think brings us to the conversation we're having today about residency requirements. And I want to,
before we do that, I just want to ask, see if anybody has questions about Scott and his work in general.
I there's one I could ask. I think
Yeah, I want to. Go ahead.
yeah, thank you, Chair. I think you've touched on this, but I was working at Essex High School when Nancy Schwartz used to be the person who would come in. And so are those positions still, I think you said they're still around and they're in a lot of schools, because I thought that was really important work.
yeah, we're in 83 schools. For
Maybe
this.
sometimes.
And we provide intensive one-on-one services for first gen students, but then at a school like Essex, we'll do forms nights and pay for college nights. And then we do 5 large events around the state. Now almost 3,000 high school juniors and seniors participate in those. We host them on college campuses and bring students in. And then we do education and training for school counselors and for teachers as well.
And how does the money flow from all of you to students?
So it varies in part, kind of by program. So our career and education counseling programs, those are supported largely by federal grants that we compete for each year. We provide a match for those by and large through the student loan revenues that we generate, which allows us to pass grant money when we receive it directly into the hands of students. Now, if they're attending a traditional education program, that money flows directly to the school. So there's a process to just ensure to ensure the integrity of the process. A student applies for money. We then, the application then flows to the school certifies that they're actually enrolled. Once that enrollment verification takes place, then the grant is dispersed to the school and then into the student's account if that's, if there's money left over after the tuition itself.
Right. Any other questions? Were you gonna have to say something else?
No, I realized you asked me to say something about my background.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I
why
never,
not?
and I never did that. And
We're dying to know.
I guess I can say that in this particular context. So I've had the opportunity of working at VSAC for 20 years, which is very, very hard to believe. Prior to that, I worked on Capitol Hill as the principal education staffer for the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, working for Jim Jeffords when he was chairman. And then as deputy staff director of the House Committee on Science with a background in math and science education with us. Have loved working at VSAC because I get to be actively engaged in conversations like this, and at the same time, sit down with students, be able to watch the impact of the work that we're doing. It's great.
On to 191.
Before we kind of turn to 191, what I did want to do is just talk about the advancement grant so that everybody knows exactly what this grant is and why we're pleased to work with Senator Hakeem and make the change that he's proposing. The advancement grant is an unusual grant. It was the first of its kind in the country. We call it a non-degree grant, where our traditional education, the traditional grant program is targeted towards what I would call traditional education programs. The advancement grant is available for any education or training program that leads to something other than a degree. It can be used to take a course, and oftentimes adult students will do that just to test the waters and see whether or not they feel as though they are, kind of comfortable going back to post-secondary education. But most often, it's used for a training program of some kind. But one example of the way that it does get used in the context of, particularly for Americans, is that in the state of Vermont, transportation is one of the biggest barriers to employment. You may have the skills, but if you can't drive, you can't actually get to the job. And oftentimes you'll see advancement grants being used to take language supported driver's education so that families are able to actually travel to and from their jobs if they're not located in a more urban environment or walking is possible. The piece that I just wanted to say, I think what we're kind of touching on is traditionally with all of our programs, much like the university's approach to who's eligible for state tuition, we have residency requirements that are designed to make sure that people don't kind of travel into the state just for the purpose of taking advantage of our benefit program. So that's why the residency requirements exist. In our particular case, kind of mirroring what's done with the education community, there's the expectation that you've lived here for 1 year before you're out of the north of our programs. And in the old traditional case, you think about the California student that lands in Vermont, maybe attending Bennington, and then at the end of their sophomore year says, I've lived here for a year, I should be eligible for financial aid. Those residency requirements are designed to preclude that, but at the same time support individuals who are living and working here with the intent to the thing that we have run into over the course of the last several years, and probably not exclusively but more and most prevalently with the Afghan parolees, is that the residency requirement, the advancement grant is particularly suited to supporting these communities. And the residency requirement effectively is precluding them from accessing it until they have the living in the state. Senator Sheen approached us kind of early in this process, raising concerns that had been raised to by constituents in Brattleboro that we had been working with. But took a look at it first to see whether this was something that we could address by policy. Concluded essentially that we can't. The residency requirement is in statute. And so I'm here essentially to support the proposal that's put here. We do have some technical corrections that we'd like to propose just to tighten up the definitions because there are some definitions that have been used that are elsewhere in the statute, particularly with regard to the state colleges, that I think we can piggyback off of in order to then clarify things. But, with that, let me just stop and take any questions we have.
Any questions? It's pretty straightforward. Senator Hashim, it's your bill. Any questions?
Yeah, yeah, thank you for being here, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to work early on. I mean, as you mentioned, one of my approaches was to try and resolve this without a bill, because it's generally, it's a bit easier that way sometimes, but one concern that I think was raised previously is, if there's no residency requirement, there's kind of this question of, is there any sort of buy-in from the individual who's applying? If they've moved here, should they at least be living here for a month or 2 months before applying for this? I do agree that a year is too long. And do you have any thoughts on whether it should be no residency requirement at all, or should it be a month, couple of months? Any thoughts on that?
And if we're having this conversation in the context of any other group, I think I would be resisting a change in the residency requirement. But, these individuals have come here, this is their best hope. They clearly have not moved here for the purposes of taking advantage of education or training benefits that they need to know exist. And as we've taken a look at it, thought about it, our state has critical workforce needs, and we need to grow the population. I think the sooner that we can help them become successful members of our community, the more likely we are to have them actually stay. Knowing that some number of them, will potentially get the education and training they need, may find another community in Minneapolis or some other places where they have family, or friends that move. I think there is that risk. But as we took a look at it after having the conversation with you and with our own, it seems like a separate category and one that, we're comfortable with. What I can say is we can always start with this. And if we conclude at the end of, and sort of back at the end of a year, take a look and see, we typically survey the advancement grant recipients. There's no reason we couldn't try and survey this community and see whether or not there's any.
So for you, with the question, did you ever think that maybe having a condition in there that the individual is applying is working through the citizenship process?
I think that if they're a parolee, they are working through that process.
Okay.
And also to that point, I mean, and the technical corrections you're suggesting, and I do want to make sure we're not inadvertently confusing things or messing things up when it comes to federal law and people's status. So, whatever technical corrections need to be made, I'm totally fine with that, of course.
Our understanding is that they are in a status where they're applying for permanent residency. You just can't guarantee where they will end up when all this said and done. But, we've seen, Winooski has kind of seen the benefits of really supporting their very, very diverse community in terms of just the economic benefits, starting businesses. It's amazing what's happening in these communities. We're all is kind of seeing the same things. So rather than this, we think it's a good investment.
Do we know the cost?
We don't. The advancement grant, which is a non-degree grant, has a upward cap on it that we put on there to kind of, which is kind of part of how we make sure that we're operating within our budget. We've got some flexibility in the allocation, of the advancement grant. So, if that program is going to running, if we've underestimated what the demand is, we can do some adjustment funding from the other programs.
Yeah, we'll run it as joint fiscal and approach and see if there are any big concerns there, but yeah.
Can you provide a sense of that
Of
scale?
how many we think are, based on the numbers that we're seeing.
Yeah.
I guess I'll make two observations. With the exception of something like the driver's education piece that I just tried, you may remember that several years ago, we made a kind of a temporary provision in order to allow the Afghan parolees access to the incentive grant for purchase of the CCD. And one of the things that we discovered in that process is that, your hierarchy of needs during that first year, going to entering a degree program kind of came at the back end of security housing, food, job. And so we didn't have huge kind of take up, in that. But part of our thinking about this is that after a year, they would be eligible anyway. So, basically your cost, in a sense, is going to be in that first year.
My question really is, I think the chair asked, like, what's the scale of what's the value of the grant? Not really sure I heard, is it $1,000?
So maximum grant is $3,500. For that, we pay careful attention to that because we have noted, particularly with some programs, that providers quickly learn if your maximum grant is some high tuition that's sliding up to that level.
Sure. You mentioned that the grant can potentially be used for driving lessons. What else?
Oh, we see a kind of full range of things. We'll see people using it to go to Welding Institute in order to pursue trades. We also have trade scholarship separately, but the non-degree tends to be, you'll see people using it to get into the medical field, so you've phlebotomy, you've got LNA, some apprenticeship programs, CDLs are a really big one, so we get a lot of CDLs. Actively used at the adult tech center programs, in order to support folks that are attending the tech centers pursuing non-traditional degree programs that lead to, lead immediately to jobs. And one of the things we brought data in, I was talking with the chair about when we do our budget presentation, we can show you data on what all these programs are being utilized for and in the results.
Language training?
Yeah.
That help?
Language training, we've seen people. Interestingly, you mentioned this isn't where you were leaning, but we just had somebody that was interested in, universal sign language training. So we'll see it. It is our most wide open grant by design, has other protections that we put on it to make sure that the programs are high quality.
Would you send us a list of the kinds of programs that'll likely come up on the floor? Give us some examples, and I've already written to joint fiscal, they'll do a fiscal note and give us some sense of the impact will be, but yeah, like somebody might say, hey, how much, and what are we looking for at, what kind of programs, center ones.
So, adult education, that's involvement too.
Yeah, this grant is only for adults, so we have other supports that we provide, for students in that, in the transition period. This was originally created, let's see, as I said, it was first in the country, and it was worker dislocation grant. So originally it was targeted towards unemployed workers, particularly. My understanding was when the tooling industry in Springfield was under fire. This grant was created in order to help the displaced workers kind of retrain for new jobs. And over time, it retains, that element. So a significant portion of people receiving their dislocation. And it is designed to allow them early childhood education certifications. Almost anything. That puts the burden on us, to make sure the providers are good. We've got the process that we go through for review. But I'm sorry I didn't bring the list. I should have.
Yeah, it'd be great. Email it to Morgan, me, and I think Senator Shields.
It's almost anything that
And then we can just
leads
distribute.
that leads directly to employment.
Anything else for Mr. Giles? Or I think we'll probably vote this at the end of next week, as long as Julie, if you get those numbers, and we'll ask other folks if they want to weigh in. I don't see our school folks, opposed. I think we can even get somebody in here that has benefited from this. So maybe if you have also the opportunity to send us a couple of names, so we can.
Oh, absolutely.
That would be a big help.
Yeah, we can do that. And We're taking a look at something, there may be another issue that we want to bring up that's related to this, that we could maybe come set up on Monday. And that was that 2 years ago with the committee, for the same community, we
Yeah.
made the incentive grant available.
Right.
The VSAT portion of that had a sunset because we thought we were only dealing with a 1 year residency issue. Clearly with the pro league community, we've got new applicants for leagues coming in each year. So we're taking a look at whether or not we need to lift the sunset. If that's something that you.
Yeah.
Consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same community, it's the same idea.
Absolutely. So when you said Monday, what are you talking about?
I need, I haven't talked to my team since I
Oh,
identified the
yeah,
problem, so.
Yeah, if you wanna send us an email, we might attach that to this, it'd be great to hear from a few folks. And please.
So that just lift the sunset, that required though.
That would require.
Yeah, we did it, we weren't sure how many people were gonna participate in it and thought it was a 1 year problem, so we worked with you. Developed,
Yeah, it's great.
yeah, our part was, had a sunset. The CCV part didn't, so now we've got a mismatch, we think, between what we were allowed to do and what CCV is authorized to do, and we just close that gap back on it.
And you have technical corrections to this as well.
Yes,
All right, so we still have a few things to sort of pull together that we should try to do next week, earlier, better.
what I'll do is I'll ask Tom Little to,
Oh, that'd be great, yeah.
Well, Tom, reach out.
Yeah, that'd be terrific.
who should Tom reach out to?
You can have him reach out to me, you can have him reach out to Morgan, and you should have Senator Hashim on there too, since this is his bill. It's great. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you,
Great.
thank you for having me, and thank you for taking this up, this is,
Yeah, no,
it's nice when we can,
I'll agree.
when we all find a problem.
Somebody will find a problem, I'm sure, but at least right now we can save for the moment.
Right, we can savor the moment that
Right.
we found a problem and we have a solution.
We may take 5 and then we'll come in for President Piaramella and for about 45 minutes.
I don't know if you heard of this.